So I want to start raising money to pay off school lunch debt in Seattle school districts. So children in my Seattle, and Seattle's big, so it's not my immediate community, like my neighborhood. And I don't have any children in school anymore. So, but I was a hungry child and I was really smart, but I went to school hungry a lot.
Wow.
And it affected me it affected my health, and it affected my mental health, and it affected my ability to learn. And we have the money to feed children. We have the money to feed children. We have the resources. People are hoarding wealth, and we have the money to feed children. So I will have house parties. I'm going to have concerts in my backyard. I'm going to give free astrology readings. I am going to bring people together, and I don't care what your other politics are. I don't care who you're sleeping with. I don't care who you voted for. If you want to contribute to school lunch debt being abolished, then we're on the same team.
Welcome to the Weekly Transit. Interviews and conversations from an astrological lens. There's nothing more fascinating to me about this earth than the people who inhabit it. My mission is to create deep, vulnerable, and open conversations that invite our unique guests to share the arc of their ever-evolving journey through life, in the hope that their stories inspire and resonate with you, our listeners. I'm your host, Scott Tejerian. Welcome to the Weekly Transit. I'm back here with the amazing Ricci King, fellow astrologer. So great to have you here, Ricci. Ricci is going to give us some insight into a major transit that is occurring the end of this month, the end of March 27th. Lilith is moving into a new sign, and Lilith is something that, I haven't done a lot of research on Lilith. Obviously I've heard of Lilith, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any stretch of the imagination on Lilith. But Ricci is somebody who has really invested a lot of time and energy in understanding Lilith. So, we're going to get a lesson on Lilith. I'm going to get a lesson on Lilith and what's going on with Lilith, where it's transiting, what that means. And yeah, I'm excited because, as some of you who've maybe listened to, if you haven't listened to my earlier episode with Ricci, please go back and listen to the episode that I did with Ricci. It was back in January, I think, is when it released. But Ricci really opened up, shared a lot about her story, her journey to becoming an astrologer. I have helped her on that journey. I've been her teacher, her guide, her mentor, and now she's teaching me. So it's very exciting when the student gets to teach the teacher, as I'm experiencing right now. I'm really excited for this and happy to receive your knowledge, Ricci. Welcome back.
Thank you, Scott. It's so good to be back. I feel like I really ripped the Band-Aid off with that first podcast that I did with you. And, I was nervous, but you immediately, I'm with you. You're like one of my most trusted people in my world. And the feedback that I got from that first podcast was, it really helped a lot of people. And there, a lot of people could just really identify with my story. And there is, there's healing in that. There's healing in knowing that we're not alone in what, we've experienced, good, bad, or indifferent. And I experience that every time I listen to the interviews that you've started doing. And I just love them. I love them. They're people that are all different, from each other and from
Yes.
me. But so many stories resonate with me, and just it's that I really think about the moment that we're in right now, and the unity energy with this, what I call a Pisces pilot. And we're coming into that, which we desperately need right now, especially in the United States, but the whole world. But Lilith, I'm not an expert on Lilith either. I'm not an expert on Lilith either, but I plan on becoming one.
Yes. Well, I know that you've read a lot about Lilith.
Yes.
And you're very interested in Lilith, so you have a level of expertise. Are you the final word on Lilith? I mean, I don't know who that is, but I mean, it's not about that. I know that you've done a lot of research. You spend a lot of time looking at this, Lilith and what that means, and I'm excited to learn more about it. I just want to reflect for a minute on what you just shared, and also let you know that I received so many responses from people after your interview. They're just like, wow, like, Ricci, oh my God, like, she just ripped me open. Like, like, I just, like, they were blown away by your vulnerability and your courage to really speak your truth and share your story. So I've received a lot of inspirational messages from people that were inspired by you. So yeah, Ricci, I know, you're not the final word on Lilith, but let's just put it this way. You know way more about Lilith than I do. I know what I know, and I'm not afraid to admit what I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know something about something that I haven't done the research on. And Lilith is one of those things. So I'm going to ask you some really dumb questions that are not dumb questions, but they're questions that need to be asked for anyone who doesn't know what Lilith is. Really, like me. Like, what is Lilith? What is that?
Well, one of the reasons I became fascinated with Lilith is because I became fascinated because of you. I became fascinated with my north and south node.
Yes.
Which are non-celestial. They're not celestial
planets.
Bodies. They're points.
Exactly.
They're energetic points.
Yes.
And so I mean, this is all on you.
All right, cool. I'm glad.
Really is.
I'm here to inspire you.
But yes, you did, because it was that understanding, that energy, that frequency within myself made me really curious. My Gemini South Node, yes, which is now my progressed ascendant. Gemini is my progressed ascendant. I was like, oh, I want to know more about these energetic points. And, so I started exploring that. So Lilith actually came on my radar when...
Now, before you, I want you to answer this question.
Yes.
And I do. But now you've brought up another question that I want you to answer, that maybe some listeners aren't clear, because you're talking astrology now.
Yes.
And it's like, so what does that mean, progressed ascendant?
Okay. So as we evolve, as we mature, we have our natal chart, which is, as you so beautifully teach, our code. But we keep getting upgraded. Yes. We keep getting upgraded. And as we mature, those energies, those frequencies from our natal chart are still very much a part of who we are. But let's face it, I'm not the same person that I was on day one when I was born. And the person that I am now has evolved. And that evolution is also coded in our chart, because every day of life, we receive the frequencies that we will receive in that year of life. And I really want to emphasize that to me, the progressed chart doesn't really become that significant until after our first Saturn return.
Okay.
Because let's face it, the first 30 days of our life, the first 30 days
is the first 30 years.
Is the first, but not a lot changes in 30 days in the zodiac, right?
Yeah.
The sun might move. The only thing, the thing that's going to change the most is going to be the moon, because it's two and a half. So I don't really spend much time looking at progress charts and I don't have that many clients that are under 30, but I have a few. But after for 30 and beyond is really when I feel like the progress chart really starts to gain significance. And within the progress chart, there are new frequencies for you to, it's new low-hanging fruit is what so we tell ourselves stories about our astrology, and we can get stuck in those stories. I'm a Virgo sun. And then let's just think about all the memes out there about Virgo signs, because every meme about any sign is about the shadow of that sign. So I always think about your story, Scott, that you tell so beautifully, and you've told many times, about meeting the girl in the bar and telling her that you're a Scorpio, and she's like, bye.
Yeah, she ran.
So all she knew was the shadow of Scorpio, which is really unfortunate. And I think we're evolving beyond that kind of storytelling. But so I didn't identify with being a Virgo for a very, very long time, because to me that meant, that I was fastidious, and I had to stick up my what.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about those memes, is the memes are really meant for the people that know Virgos.
Yes.
Or the people that know Scorpios. And so it's like playing into that lowest common denominator.
Right.
Of, Geminis are all two-faced. And, so everyone has experienced like a Gemini just kind of switching on them. So it's like, yeah, they're all two-faced. You can't trust a Gemini. And it's just like so unfair to anyone who is a Gemini. It's like, I'm not two-faced. So you're not, we're not looking at the bigger picture. But when you're talking about like the progress chart, so the ascendant also progresses, like all the houses progress. And
everything progresses.
Yes. And so it goes like like the moon moves how much every day or every year? Once every year it moves like how much?
Well, I don't know that exactly.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it moves 2.5. It moves signs every 2.5 days. So it's a couple of years, in your progress chart.
Wow.
So that's something that I look at on a regular basis. But I'm going to die a Sagittarius sun. And
wow, perfect. And your North Node is in Sagittarius.
Exactly. Which one of that, again, because this is because of you. I feel like, maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but I really found it. You probably didn't experience it this way, but I found that I was able to lean into the higher frequencies of Sagittarius, because of a lot of repetition that you provided, like you're in your South Node, you're in your South Node, you're in your South Node. Over the 14 months, that we were working together in the cosmic path. And I was like, why was it so much easier for me to get into my North Node than it is for some of my clients? That it just seems like it's so hard. And then I learned about progressions. And how did I learn about progressions? I was guided. I was guided that there's something, this is why. And it's like, I was literally told, you've progressed.
Wow.
You've progressed.
you're listening to that Sagittarius voice channel.
Yes.
You
And
know, come
so
through
I'm
to
like,
you.
what does that
Yes.
mean? And it's like, I get these little, sound bites.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just get on my computer and I'm like, astrology progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came up progressions. And then and then immediately it clicked.
Wow.
And then I saw that in my software, I could create a progressed chart.
Yes.
And it's just wild. It's wild because I'm like you, like I have books everywhere, because when I was like, I'm going to do this, and I just ordered like every book that, all the top selling books on astrology. And interestingly, every once in a while, I'll be guided to open a particular book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually books on karmic astrology, which I found all of these books that are no longer being printed.
Oh wow, cool. I have a bunch of those too.
And those are my favorites. And that's usually where I'm led. And so, I think kind of what I'm practicing is a fusion of karmic and evolutionary astrology. It's like, it's people ask me all the time, what it's definitely not humanistic, because I can't listen to, because humanistic astrology they don't explore the nodes and most of the energetic parts. And it's not mundane, even though I've become very fascinated with mundane astrology,
experiencing what's going on in the world,
experiencing a fascist coup. Really made me become interested in mundane astrology, which again, Lilith is playing a role, in the United States. We could talk about this for hours and hours, but so that's the progressed chart. It's your evolved self, and if you are really having an easy time leaning into your North Node, my guess is that you have arrived at that. Some of your major players are now in the same energy frequency as your North Node, because I see this a lot with my clients. And so teaching someone, guiding someone, because we're not really teaching them, teaching them about the frequencies of their North Node, the higher frequencies, using that as a tool to lift out of the stagnancy of the South Node, is still very much a focus of my practice, as I know it is yours, because it's kind of like, that's the antidote for anxiety. It's the antidote for all of the ways that we feel uncomfortable in our own skin, is getting into that energy. And it's so interesting that I came into this career, because I've had so many careers, that I came into this career at this time with my son, my progressed sun
in Sagittarius.
And it's conjunct my natal midheaven.
Wow. Yes. Amazing.
So, yeah.
So you're here so it's great to have you on to share your wisdom. Don't discount your wisdom, Ricci.
Yes.
So, you're here to speak from that position of authority.
Yes.
So I cut you off earlier. So tell us who we took a sidetrack, a detour, but tell us who, it was a fun detour, but tell us about Lilith. Who is Lilith? What is Lilith?
So Lilith, is I'm gonna read this, because I always get the description, or how we calculate it. I always get it discombobulated with the other points, energetic points. So first of all, I want to say in my practice, I use the mean Lilith. So there's a mean Lilith and a true Lilith, just as there are with the North Node, with the nodes. There's mean nodes and true nodes. I use the mean calculation,
and
which
why is that?
Is automatically done because of the consistency. With the true, it's bouncing
back
around.
and forth.
It's
Yeah.
bouncing back and forth, right?
Mhm.
And I've played with both.
Hmm.
And I have found that it just resonates with what I'm being guided. You know, it's everything that I do is guided.
Mhm.
It's all
Trusting your intuition.
trusting my intuition. Trusting
Mhm.
my intuition. That my Pisces part of fortune in my first house, which is,
Mhm.
you know, I have a Pisces pileup on my first house right now. I'm really going to miss it. I'm really going to miss it because it's going to be interesting when Neptune moves into Aries, because the beginning of that will happen in my first house. But my God, what has happened in my life since Neptune has been in my first house?
Wow, that was a long time ago. That was 15, no longer than that, probably
2012.
Well, no, but it moved into your first
Since
house
Neptune
before
has
that.
been in my
In Pisces in your
in
first
Pisces.
house. Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because
It's
you're an
Pisces.
Aquarius rising, so it's been in your
Yes.
first house for longer than 12 years.
Yes, 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 yeah. But in
Mhm.
Pisces,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, it started, in my 12th house first,
Mhm.
which is when, you know, I really started unearthing a lot of the unconscious. But so the mean, so the it's the Black Moon Lilith is the point in the moon's orbit where it is the farthest from the Earth. It's the farthest from the Earth.
It's a point in the moon's orbit that is farthest from the Earth. So
farthest
it's not
from the Earth. It's the apogee of the lunar orbit.
So it's not necessarily where the moon is, it's where the furthest part of the moon's orbit is from the Earth. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. And that's getting kind of technical. And I was thinking about, like, how much do I want to talk about how to calculate this and everything, but it's like we don't use the math anymore, so because we have the software, and I don't want to lose people on that. But it is like the nodes. It is related to the moon's orbit, which again, that really resonated with me. That really, you know, and then so she came on my radar when you and I were working together, and we weren't talking. I wasn't talking to you about her because I was learning about her, and I was kind of exploring what this meant. And I was working on so many other things, you know, like really, you know, I mean, relationship stuff, and career stuff, and there were so many other things, but she just kept coming up. She just kept saying, "Look at me, look at me." And finally, I just kind of last year went down a rabbit hole with her, and I had this Libra pile up in my 8th house, you know. And it's so funny because I was thinking in my meditation this morning that years ago, back in the 80s, I was, you know, really into finding out what my calling was. And I was taking all of those tests that everyone was taking, you know, to tell you where your skills are, all the skill sets tests and everything, right? And what kept coming up was that I would be an excellent private detective. That I had, like, you know, and I always thought, oh, that's the Virgo analysis, but I didn't really know anything about any other part of my astrology then. And so, you know, turns out my moon and my Mercury and my Neptune are in the 8th house. And so there was a lot of goddess activity last fall in my 8th house with the North Node in Libra, or I'm sorry, the South Node in Libra was in my 8th house. Juno came through there. Uh, Black Moon Lilith was there. Who else? Libra South Node, Mercury yeah, so there was all of these conjunctions happening very, very quickly. And they were trining my natal Lilith, which I think it's really important to point out as well. She is conjunct my North Node.
Your natal Lilith is conjunct your North Node.
They're both at 21 degrees.
Wow.
Yes. And so she kind of started talking to me and saying, you need to learn about me because you're going to teach about me. And I was like, oh, okay. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
So Lilith is a point in the sky. It's not a planet. What does Lilith represent?
Lilith represents the divine feminine. She's introverted, and she is feminine rage.
Feminine rage.
Feminine rage.
Oh, that sounds fun.
She represents feminine rage. Well, you have her too. Feminine rage.
Yeah.
Well, feminine, I mean, I've really been trying to, these are great questions, and I kind of anticipated you would ask them. And so I'm thinking about, I was really thinking about Mars is, extroverted, and Lilith is introverted, and feminine rage is really righteous anger that is fueled, that erupts in the presence of injustice, in the presence of.
So this is like that woman that sneaks into your tent in the middle of the night and cuts your throat.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I'm going to say, from my studies and my experience, Lilith, it's the very last resort is violence. It's not, it is,
so is
again.
she more of a seductress where she's going to try to seduce you into
No,
doing
she's
something?
a problem solver.
A problem solver.
She's a problem solver.
She's a solution-oriented person.
Yes.
Deity.
A non-violent, I mean, it's, rage doesn't have to be, like, again, when we think about rage, we think about Mars and we think about war. Okay.
Yes.
I think what's happening right now in the collective is really there's so many ways that we can, that are mirroring Lilith. And I would say, like, the boycotts, the strikes, that is Lilith. That's Lilith. Like, we are
like peaceful protest or peaceful action.
It's action. Yes, it's organization. It's I mean, think about, like,
it's about resisting control.
It is. It's resistance. It's resistance. Yeah. It is resistance, and it's working. It's having an impact. She wants to have an impact, and with the least amount of harm, no harm if possible.
So it's like the Lilith Fair. Sarah McLachlan.
That was singing. Yes, that energy was
singing, and just, that's the protest, is we're going to sing and we're going to have an amazing time. We're going to dance.
Yeah.
And nothing is going to stop us from really loving ourselves and just celebrating our feminine nature of,
yes,
we can be vulnerable and you still can't fuck with us type of vibe. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Like, we are going to be in our divine feminine, and we have boundaries.
Yeah.
We have boundaries. Aries has boundaries, right?
Yeah.
But Aries has boundaries. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there because here's the challenge for me.
Yeah.
Here's a challenge for me. Like this, how I love to talk about geopolitics and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's that 10th house stuff, and I really don't. And it's like, you're not political and your podcast is not political. So I'm going to do the best that I can not to go there. But I'm like,
yes.
But yeah, I don't want to bore people to death with geopolitics. So Lilith is, well, let's talk about the archetype that would probably be. So unfortunately, so Lilith is a part of the origin story that the Christian faith so strategically just kind of erased. And that's and Lilith really doesn't like erasure. So that's the other thing that she will stand up against is erasure.
So is it part of like biblical myth? Like she was Adam's first wife or something?
She was Adam's first wife, and she was formed from the earth.
Not from his rib.
Not from his rib. She was formed from the earth just as he was, and she saw herself as being an equal to him, and she wanted to be in partnership. Don't you think that's funny?
Why is that funny?
Because what do I always talk about? What am I in pursuit of?
Partnership?
Partnership.
Yeah, because you have all that 7th house, 8th, all those 7th house, 8th house planets.
Yes, I have a stacked 7th and 8th house, and I've got Lilith in my 10th house.
And a Libra stellium.
And a Libra stellium.
8th house stellium, 7th house stellium, Libra stellium. Yeah.
Right.
So no wonder you're interested in Lilith and being the equal and balance and equal to the man and all that sort of stuff.
Yes. So that's, so she was there are different, with mythology, it's like some of the stories are that she just flipped Adam off and left the garden. And
she got out there while the getting was good, though.
But other stories are that she was, asked to leave and said, don't let the door, hit you in the ass on the way out. And then, Eve, then the Eve story, which,
but
that's been a lot to deal with.
Doesn't Lilith, like, okay, whether she left or got kicked out, she looks like the one who won.
Yes.
Because she didn't get banished like Adam and Eve did for getting tempted by the
imagine if he would have said, okay, let's be partners and let's live in paradise forever. And, but, men.
That didn't happen. Man, it's all the man's fault. Yeah? Is that what you're saying, Ricci? Come on.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not that girl.
No, I know. It's hilarious. So
she went off and she gave birth to many, many children. But because of what happened, she was called a demon, and her children were called demons.
Was she promiscuous, or was she in a monogamous relationship?
Well, no, she was. I mean, they were creating humanity.
Yeah.
So everyone was promiscuous.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So exactly. Yes. Yeah. But not from the puritanical, way that we think
But that's the perception of, she's demonic.
Yes.
Because she's seducing all these men.
Yes.
And she's having her way with these men and taking advantage of these men, and now the men are all the victims.
And she's her own person.
Yeah, she doesn't need the man.
Yes,
to
she's her own person. And that's where our perception of promiscuity comes from. When men are intimate with many, many women, they're,
the
yes.
stud.
When women are intimate with many, many men, they're promiscuous. So that's why I'm like really going to push back against that term, like that's the, that's, a lot of the division that we have been, that's one of the spells we're under. I'm really referring to things, indoctrination, as spells now. That's how I'm experiencing them. That's how I am. And in this moment that we're in right now, and I want to stay on Lilith, but this moment that we're in right now with this Venus retrograde, oh man, Venus is on a spell breaking mission unlike any other.
Yeah.
And then to take that back to Lilith, in my mind, I imagine that last fall when the South Node was in Libra and Lilith was in Libra and Venus transited through Libra and Juno was in Libra and Mercury came through, and they were all conjunct there for, almost all of September and I think into October. There were some big conversations going on there that Venus is bringing to fruition now. And in that, with that Aries, Mars, Aries, divine masculine, and this integration, like we have to get out of that Mars toxicity. When I say we, I mean the collective, and very specifically the United States. That warmongering, bloodbath, that dominance, that power, that kind of power, and recognize that that's not real power. That's the we're looking. That's the shadow of Mars. That's the shadow of Mars.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot of what's happening now. And so when Lilith is going to move into, so she's still in Libra, she's in the, the final degrees of Libra. I think she's at 27 or 28 right now. And she's going to move into Scorpio on March 27th.
Yeah.
And then again, now we've got Scorpio, we've got Pluto and Mars and Lilith in, sync here. And because that's the alchemy of the energy, right? And she's going to be revealing secrets.
So what you're saying is the alchemy is because Mars and Pluto rule Scorpio. So they're Pluto's the god of death. Mars is the god of war.
Right.
Scorpio's the sign of secrets. It's symbolized by the scorpion. The scorpion is that very tiny creature that can go places that no one else can go. So that's why it represents secrets, because it goes into hidden areas. Where's it going? What is it doing? Nobody knows. But Lilith is going to come in and bring a feminine awareness to secrets.
She's going to bring up our righteous rage, which we're already seeing because she's in Libra values. She's in Libra, right? Values. She's in, she's showing us where partnerships are out of balance. She's, it's like really the origin story again, it's the origin, it's her origin story that she's telling right now.
Mm.
And how, we can, I'm going to really try to keep it to domestic issues and not go geopolitical, but women's rights,
Mm-hmm.
the marginalized. She's always speaking on behalf of the marginalized. She saw herself as being marginalized, right? She knew she was an equal.
Mm-hmm.
She knew she was equal to that dude. And yet society told her that she wasn't. And so she left, and she kept showing up as like, I'm going to do what I came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I am an equal. And right now we're seeing that in, so many ways of the, she's, the way that we keep picking a different community to marginalize is mind blowing to me. But so there's all of that. Like, she's really trying to teach us how to be in collective partnership.
So see,
And
this is interesting, collective partnership, because when you're thinking about the politics, it's because I'm not on either side. I'm looking at it from both angles, and I understand it's very clear and easy to see how people on the left feel like they're being marginalized, or that minority groups, groups that are already on the fringe are being pushed further onto the fringe, and so there's a lot of rage or anger or fear about that. But on the other side, there is what I'd heard for the 4 years prior to where we are now was that all these marginalized groups are now being forced upon them, and so everything swings like the pendulum. It's like, and we want to get to the top of the pendulum where we're not moving. That's where I try to be, but I can clearly see down here, it's like you knew once people on the right felt like they were being force-fed gender changes and that sort of stuff, that they were going to push back hard the other direction. And so, like, when I think of this, like, community or equality, like, we have to, I don't know, like, it's like we're pushing on each other to go one way or the next, and that's gonna, I mean, hopefully something blooms of this that's wonderful, but this is how wars begin, when people are just like, they can't see things from the other side, and so they need to force their will upon that side. And so I saw the left forcing their will upon the right the last 4 years, and now we're seeing the right force their will upon the left. And the thing is like, when you talk to normal people, like regular everyday people, like, I don't see those experiences the way that they're played out in the media and with the politics, like with the because the politicians do a great job at just stoking the fire. And so I'm wondering if Lilith is going to continue to stoke the fire, or if if her going into Scorpio means that when the secrets come out, that it's not a one-sided affair, that it's not the left is good and the right is bad, because that's what I was hearing for the last 4 years, was like, this is a like, on the right, you'd hear all these phrases like, this is a battle between good and evil. It's like, you hear that from the right all the time. And I'm just like, I don't think it's that simple, because I know good people on the left and the right. So it can't be left is good, right is bad, or right is good and left is bad.
yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
That's a construct.
Yes.
That's a construct. Everything that
Yes.
you just said is a construct. There is no left or right.
Right.
There really is no left or right. And now we are getting political, and you took it there. So let's just go. Let's go. Let's go.
I felt you wanting to go there, so I'm like, we
Well,
can't
I
start,
mean,
we
I
can't
was,
continue with the
I mean,
veiled conversation.
you were the one that got really passionate about it. So let's call it what it is.
Your veiled commentary. So
No,
I'm like,
no,
take
because
off the
I
veil,
wasn't
take
I
off
was
the
not
filter.
thinking of either side. I was
Okay.
not thinking of.
I'm hearing it from one side though.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
was
I'm
not.
hearing.
Yeah, I was not hearing the right. I mean, I was not thinking about the right versus the left or any of that. I really that wasn't even in my mind.
So what was in your mind?
What's in my mind is that it has been a part of the United States origin story.
Mm-hmm.
It has always been a part of the United division has always been a part of the United States origin story.
Yeah.
And we have all participated in that. Whether no matter what side we're on, quote unquote side, there are no sides. If we just, stepped out of that and said that we're all citizens. We're all citizens of this country, of this planet, of this world. And this is where we're heading with Pluto and Aquarius. And also I quickly want to drop this into this moment, and that's that when she enters Scorpio, she is going to be squaring Pluto. She's going to be squaring Pluto for several weeks.
Yes.
And in the first few weeks of Pluto's retrograde. So there is something. And when we look at this in the USA's chart, which I never in a million years thought I was going to go there, but my guides keep taking me there. Like, things are going to go down this summer. And you probably, I haven't watched her most recent thing with Delisa, but things are going to go down this summer. She's going to be, squaring, and then in my chart, she's squaring my Chiron and my Uranus. So, girl, I'm on your side.
She's going to be squaring the United States North Node.
She's going to be squaring the United States North Node, and she's squaring the Pluto in the United States third house, I think, right? Third house?
Well, no.
No, second house. Pluto is transiting Pluto is in the United States second house.
Yes, but that's at 27 degrees. She's already squaring that right now. But by the time we get to the summer, then she's going to be, several degrees beyond that point.
Right. But when she gets into Scorpio, it's going to be different than in Libra. When she's squaring Pluto in Scorpio, it's going to change.
She's going to be squaring Pluto in Aquarius when she's in Scorpio.
Yes, but when she's in Scorpio.
Yeah.
Yes,
but that's different than the United States Pluto, which is in Capricorn.
But she's squaring, I'm talking about where Pluto is in the United States chart. So she is squaring the United States chart now, but I'm talking about transiting Pluto.
Right.
Where
exactly.
transiting Pluto is in
Aquarius.
Is in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's gonna square. She's gonna square Pluto in Aquarius in April. April is when it's gonna be strongest.
Yes. Yeah. Well, from 0 degrees in March and into, Pluto's only at 3 degrees, so that's close enough. That's where it's going to start.
Totally.
It'll be exact.
So what do you think what do you think's gonna happen with that?
Something's gonna happen. I don't get. I have a very close group of people that I feel safe in making predictions with, and I do make predictions with them, and they are frequently on point. I am not yet confident
Yeah.
to make, really public
No,
predictions.
but this is like a broader sort of thing. It's
But
not
yeah,
like
I think exactly what we were talking about. This is why I really wanted to share about this at this time, because I do think that a lot of truths are going to start coming to the surface, and she is going to be we're going to see a lot of grassroots movements. A lot of grassroots movements. And there's going to be a very, we will see the peaceful protests. What I believe is going to happen is that the response to peaceful protests and the response to peaceful marches and the response to peaceful, non-violent measures is going to be met with violence.
By the government or by
the
fringe
government.
groups? Okay.
By the government. By the government. Yes, that's what I think is going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that, students are organizing now, and, every successful revolution that I can track anywhere in the world has involved students and young people uprising. That's just, I don't, I'm like you, I'm really careful not to incite fear. And so I want to say that whatever is coming, that I really believe that we are resourced that we are by the universe, that we are resourced to stand up against, the oppression that is being, and I think that the next 2 years are going to be really tough. I think the next 2 years are going to be really, really tough. That's, and then it's in these early degrees of Pluto, I think when we're going to see what we're made of. And it's kind of going to be make or break. And that's why I really want to talk about these energies that are not planets that most astrologers focus on, because these energies are as important, if not more important. These frequencies, to me, this is what I am being told. And so that's what I'm tapping into, and that's where I'm being led. I really want to get back to what you were talking about before, and which was about the left and the right and all of that. Okay. And it's like both, I don't even like calling them sides, because they're on the same side.
Yeah, exactly.
They're on the same side.
Exactly.
They're funded by each party.
Same people.
Exactly. Each party is funded by the same side. And I know it's like, I just don't want, I love you so much, and I care so much about you. And I hear when you share about people getting upset with your podcast not being this or not being that. And I'm like, I don't want you to get shit for us talking about this, but but you can take it.
Yeah.
And I'll be getting most of the shit anyway.
No.
And I don't care. I don't care. I know that I'm supposed to be, on the mountaintop.
Sagittarius.
I'm supposed to be in the 10th house.
I'm
supposed to be,
take the veil off and speak your truth.
I'm supposed to be on the mountaintop. So that, you mentioned a few marginalized communities, and it's like, no one's forcing any, like no one's forcing anyone to become trans.
Right.
Why
I
the
I hear
fuck
what
do
you're
you
saying.
care about somebody becoming trans? Like
I
nobody's
I
forcing you to be trans. Why do you
I
care about anybody else?
I agree with you 100%. The only
But
thing
people
is
are being told that they should care about that.
no, I'm saying that the narrative is that, you know, like, and I don't even know if this stuff is true, but what I hear online, and I actually have a good friend who I grew up with, whose child is gender neutral, or
Mm-hmm.
gender fluid is what they call it, but
Non-binary.
yeah, he says they're gender fluid. So
Mm-hmm.
but they live in Ohio, where it's a different world over there
Mm-hmm.
than California. But in California, it's like if your child says, and your child's a boy and says, I'm a girl now,
Mm-hmm.
then that's not something that goes back to the parents. Like, it's something that stays at school. And that is where people on the right, what I'm hearing, are upset, because they're like, I need to know everything that's going on with my child. And if you're not telling me what my child's saying, then it feels like you're grooming them or forcing them down a path that they don't really have the wherewithal to even make that decision. And that's something that I, the parent, should be aware of. And so, on the other side, I hear from my friend in Ohio that it's like, if you're telling a parent that, then that child could be punished in some way, could be abused in some way, and and they are, and the school from the California side is protecting the child from that. So, I mean, I can see it from both sides, but that's
There
why
is only one side. There is really only one side.
and
And
what's
that
that?
is the side of a child being made to feel safe everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So if a child does not feel safe to share with their parents their gender identity,
Right.
that's on the parents.
Mm-hmm.
The parents, let's do some reflection.
Yes.
And then let's talk about what indoctrination, what spell are you under that you cannot love your child exactly where your child is at? What spell are you under? I know you hear me, but I'm saying that's my response. And that's what
no.
we're,
But
that's because the parent in Ohio, because there's parents in California that are doing the same thing as the parents in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about something very, very sensitive here. I was like,
well, I mean, Lilith is going into the sign of secrets and sex.
exactly,
So we
secrets and sex,
be talking about this.
Yeah. But
right?
yes, I love that we're talking about this. I was not ready for this, though. I mean, I didn't know that we were going to go there.
I didn't either.
Okay, that's a lie. I'm always ready for this. I'm always ready for this. I didn't know that you would be ready for this, but I should have known you're a Scorpio.
I just love getting into the, to the dark areas of things.
Yes, and
having real conversations. I mean, I think it's important with Pluto and
me, my
Aquarius.
friend.
We've got to have open conversations.
Yes,
I think there's got to be a medium point between, the parent feeling safe sending their children to the school and not feeling like their child is being indoctrinated under a different spell, because it could be seen from their perspective that, they're in the secular world where, gender is not clear in the same way that it was clear when I was growing up in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, you know, and so now I'm sending my child into somebody else's care,
Mm.
and I don't know how these people view the world, if they view it the same as me. So I'm trusting them to raise my children for 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day, however long kids go to school. And if they're raising them and talking about gender and sex and that sort of thing, like maybe, you know, isn't that, like, at what age is that appropriate? Number one, you know, like that's where parents have to be involved in the conversation, where they're going to say, you know,
I don't know that.
when do I want to talk to my child about sex and what it means to be a man or a woman, or that sort of stuff? Like, is it the school's responsibility, or is it the parent's responsibility to have that conversation with the child? But what you're saying is the child is coming up with this feeling that is innate within them, that as soon as I could remember, even though I was being raised a boy, I felt like a girl. And so I didn't feel comfortable expressing that in the home, but I did feel comfortable expressing that in the school. And so I'm grateful to the school for protecting me and my gender identity with my parents, because that would have never flown with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can see it from both sides. It's a really difficult conversation. I don't think that one is
I
right or
don't.
wrong.
Yeah, I have a very different perspective, that if a child, I mean, it's not like children are going to school and, you know, like a teacher is saying, raise your hand if you think you have a different sexual identity than what's on your birth certificate.
Well, first of all, I don't know what they're saying in school,
But
because
that's
I'm not going to school. I'm not sitting in these
exactly. But
classrooms. I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah, but that,
But I think that's kind of the fear that people are experiencing on the side that says, I don't want this being taught to my children, because is it being taught to my children or is it not? I don't know. I'm not there. But I'm just saying what I'm hearing from people that do send their kids to school, or, you know, saying like, I can't even walk on campus, go to my kid's classroom. That's, for a parent, that's kind of a scary feeling, I guess, from their perspective, that they don't know what's going on in the classroom with their children. So,
I think that there's a false narrative here. And
well, and see, that's where the spell comes in.
Yes.
So
yes.
what is
But
the
that's
truth?
what I'm saying, is like there are people, I mean, there are people in leadership that are standing at podiums in front of thousands of people and saying things that are not true.
Mm.
And
Well,
people are
that's nothing
receiving
new.
them as truth, because it's the person that they are trusting, right?
Yes.
They are not investigating this on their own. They are not going to the schools and saying what. There are a lot of people in my generation that haven't had a child in school for decades, that are repeating stories that they are hearing from quote unquote leaders as being fact, and they have no fucking idea what's really happening. They're just repeating these stories of parents losing their rights to their all of this.
Absolutely.
That is what I am talking about.
Yeah.
We are hearing things and we are not knowing things.
Yes, exactly.
We are hearing things and we are not knowing things.
Yes.
And that's what we have been doing forever. Forever.
Yes.
We hear that a person of a certain skin color is a thug and will rob us and will, harm us. And will rape us and whatever. And we have no evidence whatsoever, and have never had any evidence whatsoever in our entire lifetimes. But we have been indoctrinated with this, and it's epigenetic. I mean, our great grandmothers believed it, and our grandmothers believed it, and our mothers believed it, and then here we are.
Yes.
And so that we're under this blanket of so many spells, so many spells.
Yes. Exactly.
So one of the
it's
things, I know that we both have like an affinity for the universal year, right? That this is a universal 9 year. So one of the things that was shown to me, and we're all over the place now, for anyone that came here to learn just about Lilith.
I think this is in line with that, though, isn't it?
It is very in line with it. It's very in line with it.
Revealing the secrets of
we are equal partners. We are
exactly.
Yes, we are equal partners. So one of the things that was revealed to me that I am absolutely fascinated with, and I will not stop talking about it and researching it this year, and that is, so we're in this, Venus 8-year cycle, right? And everyone's saying, not everyone, but the majority of astrologers are saying, look back to 2017, look back to 2017. Well, okay, that's the Venus cycle. That's the last time that she cycled through this area of the zodiac. But then again, I'm like, I literally, Scott, I get infographics.
Venus, this was the last time it cycled through this area. What do you mean by that? Like,
so Venus retrograde. Venus only retrogrades.
Venus retrograde.
Venus retrograde.
Yeah, because Venus goes through this cycle, the zodiac,
every year. But Venus retrograde, which is 18 months.
Yeah. Okay.
So 2017. Okay, I'm sending my clients back to all the same things that you do. Look at your photos, look at your journals, whatever. Let's go back. Let's revisit. But then I was told, my guides are like, this is different. This is different. And I get like these infographics in my, they're not, that's how I describe them. Venus is actually on a 72-year cycle. Because Venus retrograde, this part of the chart, in a universal 9-year, only happens every 72 years.
Wow. And 7 + 2 is 9.
And 7 + 2 is 9. And they're all, and you go, right, because it's that way. Every single one of them equals 9. Yes. So if you go back 72 years, 72 years, 72 years. So this, I don't know who's going to, resonate with this, but okay, let's just go back 72 years to 1953. I wasn't even born yet. Neither were you. Dwight Eisenhower was president. They were taxing the wealthy at 90%.
Wow. Yeah.
They were recovering from the financial and socioeconomical ramifications of World War II. The CIA helped overthrow the government in Guatemala.
Wow.
McCarthyism. And the North Node was in Virgo. The South Node was in Virgo, and conjunct that year, it would have been conjunct the USA's Lilith is in Virgo, in the USA's 9th house. The Cold War. If we go back and we look at that, we are breaking spells from then. The way that, women couldn't own property without a man in 1953. There's so many, like there's just so many things that are relevant in this moment that we can go back and we can connect the dots. We are breaking spells. And if we go back and we go back, and so I kept being shown, go back 72 years, go back another 72 years. I got to 1737 and it was like, stop. So everything that's happening right now, we can connect a dot to somewhere in that. We're breaking spells from 1737. So one of the first things that this administration did, just a few days into this administration, they discontinued the printing of the penny.
Wow.
The first copper penny was minted in the United States in 1737.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think that means?
These things that seem innocuous and seem meaningless are all connected to the roots of our extraction, our culture of extraction and power. And then I mean,
what does that mean, culture of extraction?
We take resources from the earth and we assign value to them. Yeah. And we change the frequency of the ground that we walk on. But that was my clue to really explore Venus. And I'll tell you why, because copper is Venus's metal. This is how my guides work with me. They're like, I get copper. I'm like, oh, well, that's Venus. And they're like, go look at Venus. And then I see all of this stuff that's happening that, again, I don't, you're the only astrologer that I follow now because, everyone else really annoys me, but, because it's such clickbait. But my clients follow a lot of astrologers and they'll come to me and they'll be like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm like, yeah, everyone's going to talk about that. It's the low-hanging fruit. It's the low-hanging fruit. Venus in this retrograde is crossing in pre-retrograde shadow to retrograde to post-retrograde shadow. She's crossing the Pisces eclipse point from September 17th 3 times. She's crossing the 9-degree eclipse point for Aries. Solar eclipse that's
March
coming
30th,
up 3 times.
Yeah.
She's crossing the 0 degrees of Aries, critical 0 degrees of Aries, new beginnings, the beginning of everything, into the end of everything, Neptune or Pisces, 29 degrees. It just all kind of takes my breath away because it's beginnings and it's endings and it's that eclipse connected to this eclipse, right? And it's where it's happening in my chart, like the first eclipse was opposing my sun and Venus. This eclipse on the 14th is conjunct that part of my chart. So it's like,
yeah,
you're eclipsed. Look at the eclipses. This is not like Venus retrograde that we've ever experienced before.
Like a normal Venus retrograde.
It's like there's nothing normal from this point on. And the fact that the energy of this year, like the combined changes that the planets are making in the signs and the retrogrades and the points that they're crossing, because Mercury is going to cross that eclipse point, that 9-degree eclipse point 3 times too.
Yeah.
There's no record of this in history. And that's why it's so important that we understand that what we think is going to happen, we have to reframe it. Like everyone keeps talking about, every time that Uranus is in Gemini, the United States goes to war. Well, you're just you're looking at one transit. We don't have any historic reference for what we're doing right now because we are rewriting it. We're literally rewriting it. So that copper penny is about stolen land and about mining copper on indigenous land. And just think about, I mean, when I think about money now, it's so funny, but again, it's a broken spell. I could get a piece of copper and pound it into a disc and say, this is the equivalent of $5 million. Right? Does that make it so?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But the government can take a copper disc and say, this is worth 1 pence.
Exactly.
1 penny.
Yeah. But now we're
Is that
moving.
absurd?
It is absurd, but it's absurd that we hand paper to each other and say it's money. It's absurd that we have now just numbers floating around in the ether that we say, this is how much money I have.
This is how much money I have, right?
Exactly. But that's what we agreed to.
These are the spells that are being broken. And so I think how I'm tying this to Lilith, let's come back to Lilith, my girl, my best buddy Lilith. In Scorpio, other people's money. Shared, resources.
Yeah.
Shared resources. Like we need to stop thinking about fake resources and start sharing real resources. And I think that's a lot of what Lilith is going to be doing during this time, 9.5 months. She's there until December 20th. And then we get her in Sagittarius. So shared resources, shared energy, like energy exchange. How are we exchanging energy?
But there's a lot of tension, with Pluto.
And when getting back to the the conversation that we were just having, the divine feminine and the divine masculine are non-binary.
Yeah.
You have the divine feminine.
Exactly.
And the divine masculine.
Yes.
I have the divine feminine and the divine masculine.
Exactly.
They're non-binary. And when you were saying that, back in the day, gender was clear, whatever, it was like, I had people, because I'm this 8th house, Mercury, Moon, Neptune, everybody in high school came out to me.
Yeah.
Well, and back then there were people, that I think about like David Bowie and some of the androgynous artists that we had at that time that created this opportunity for men to connect to that feminine. And I, growing up in Southern California, like the Ziggy Stardust and all of that kind of stuff. And, we would go to clubs and we would go to dances and men would come with their, faces painted or whatever. And they would have to go to somebody else's house to do that because their father would have beat the shit out of them. Right? Yeah. This has always existed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's always existed, and we permitted it then, and now, it's been weaponized.
Yeah.
That's all. It's always existed. But politicians have weaponized it.
Yeah, I agree.
And we have to, Lilith, not we, Lilith is like, that is a lie. We're not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We are not weaponizing gender identity, skin color, socioeconomic status, poverty,
Yes.
all of that.
But this is always the conversation in politics. So as long as it's a conversation in politics, it's weaponized.
It's a conversation in politics because of the people that we elect.
But why do we elect these people? Because these people
Because we're under a spell.
Yes.
We are under a spell, and we believe the lie. And we, again, like we are co-creators.
Yes.
We have to accept responsibility.
We get
for
the
this.
leaders we deserve.
We get the leaders that we deserve because we're lazy and we don't want to do the work to share the resources that really have value. What are the resources that have value?
What are they?
Art, love, community.
Yeah. Other
the intangible things, food.
Right. Yes.
Healthcare.
A roof over your head.
Shelter. A roof over your head.
Yeah. Clothing.
Clothing.
Those are resources.
Yes. And this is when I cannot even tell you. I mean, I told, little snippets of my story in our first, conversation, but I grew up in stark poverty. And I was hungry for a big chunk of my childhood. I know what it feels like to be hungry. I was unhoused many times in my lifetime. I have a place in my heart for that. It doesn't happen because you're a drug addict or you're a this or you're a that, and all of the things that our politicians, again, have assigned to those circumstances. And we don't know what those circumstances are. We just judge based upon the list of criteria that we receive as being the list of criteria. But what if we just fed people because they're hungry?
Yeah.
Because that should be a human right.
But who's going to feed them?
Well, it's not going to be the churches because
then if it's the government, if it's the government, then
we are going to build community kitchens and we are going to feed them. We are resourced. We can grow food and feed them.
And that's a wonderful thought. But the question is when the government gets involved, that's when things turn sour.
But this, again, is where we are believing in this structure that it is working when it has not been working.
Of course not.
Ever.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the veil is going to, the veil gets thin in Scorpio. Lilith is going to be very transparent. The secrets are going to get, and we're talking about Pluto. We're talking about, Scorpio rules Pluto. It's like, we're going to excavate. We're going to go deep, dark secrets for 9.5 months. 9.5 months. And here's the thing, I love that this information that's being shared across a lot of the social media platforms, that it only takes 3.5% of the population to lead a successful revolution. 3.5%. That's not everybody. So we don't need everybody. And there's a lot of people, in my world that are like, this is too much for me. I can't deal with this. I'm not built for this. My nervous system isn't. Okay, so this isn't for you. It's for me. It's for me. I know my soul did not come here in this incarnation to be like fascism. Sure. Okay, let's, you know, I did the best I could, you know. That's not, it only takes, so 3.5% of the population could raise money to feed the hungry. 3.5% of the population could not show up for work, could stop shopping at Target, could stop shopping at Walmart, could stop feeding the billionaire monsters. It's only going to take 3.5%.
How many people is that?
I don't know. I think we're like 7 billion, our population.
Oh, you're saying the whole world is gonna be a part of this revolution, not just the United States.
Well, the whole world is affected by the United States. We see what's happening in the, you know, like, but just in the United States, I don't know what our population is.
I think it's like 350 million or so. Let me look it up real quick. So yeah, so if it was 3% of 7 billion is 210 million people.
Okay.
So
worldwide.
Yeah, that's worldwide. So 210 million, that sounds like a big number. So
yeah, let's keep it to the United States. Yeah.
So in the United States right now, in the last census, as of 2024, the population was 340 million. I was thinking it was like 350. So
okay.
So 3%.
Let's go with that.
3% of 340 million is, let's see, 3% is 10 million, 10.2 million people.
Okay.
So that's the whole city of Los Angeles, basically.
There you go. There you go.
Here's the thing about the revolution, though. And, you know, I know some sort of revolutions are coming, but I think back to the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, and like, yeah, there's the American Revolution and the French Revolution. It's like, okay, the American Revolution.
The Haitian Revolution.
The Haitian Revolution as well. Yes, okay, the Haitian Revolution as well. So the Haitians revolted, and then they were left, and there was you know, embargoes against them. They had to fend for themselves, and the country has been, you know, floundering ever since. Yeah. And then you have the American Revolution, which you know, you had elites in the British colonies revolting against the elites of Britain. And so the elites of Britain decided to stop fighting the elites in the Americas, and that's what you had. You know, you still had people owning slaves, and there wasn't, you know, the equality that was written in the Declaration of Independence. Then there is the French Revolution, which you had a bunch of people that were like in a class that was below the elite class, and they revolted against that. And then they replaced themselves, and they became the elites. And then you have like Napoleon ruling France. So, you know, I know there's changes coming, and I invite the changes. Right. I'm just not optimistic about what those changes are going to bring. I think that the changes are going to bring a new group of people to power that are going to be, I don't know if they're going to be any better than the last group of people that were in power. And I think that, you know, the real change needs to happen. Like when you say boycott Target and that sort of stuff, like, and you had said earlier, you know, who are the people that we're electing? The people that we're electing are the people that the corporations are choosing to put into power. Yes. It's not that I'm electing anyone, because my vote doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is who the corporate entities are putting into positions of power.
Our vote still counts
I think that's a spell. I think
no. In local election, I'm saying in local elections.
Maybe.
But the reason that what other corporations putting forth it's the TV time. They're funding they're giving them the speech writers. They're paying for their speech writers. They're giving them the TV time. They're giving them they're paying the networks, which are owned by the billionaires. They're getting the most face time. That's what they're paying for. That's
Yeah.
they're getting the most face time, and they're getting the attorneys that help them sweep their skeletons under the closet, and they're getting so that's a lot of what's happening right now and breaking the spells. So I agree with everything that you said, like all of those revolutions, and then you still end up with a shit sandwich because we are still perpetuating the spells of patriarchy, colonialism, imperialism, capitalism.
It's about power. It's just about power. It's just
Exactly.
about, I want to be in charge.
Exactly.
I don't want these people in charge. I want to be in charge.
But we relinquished our power. We relinquished, and every time somebody says to me, I don't follow politics, and I'm like, do you not follow mortgage rates? Do you not follow gas prices? Do you not follow surveillance cameras everywhere? Do you? Oh, okay, good. Oh, you care about those things? Then you better care about politics, because this belief that there is that these people give a flying fuck about us, that's not, no.
But how is following politics going to help those issues? Because that's the system.
You have to research. You have to.
For somebody who says, I don't follow politics, I can view that as somebody who's not buying into the system, that they want to work outside the system. Because I feel like the more you're getting engaged in politics, the more energy you're giving the very system that you're wanting to dismantle.
But what are you doing to dismantle it? You're ignoring it.
No,
is not
no,
dismantling
not necessarily that. You're living your own life. You're living off the grid. You're not engaging. You're not shopping at Target. You're not wearing branded clothing.
People that are doing that are following politics. That's why they're doing that.
Maybe.
That's why they're doing that. I'm telling you right now, there's this dude that I follow on TikTok, and he's like so smart, so eloquent, so dialed in, and he's way off the grid. He's way off the grid. His name's Thorin Bradley. He doesn't have any idea who I am, but I really appreciate his content. And he is very eloquent at these conversations, but he owns guns. He chops wood. He has chickens. He lives off the grid, and he knows everything that's going on. He knows everyone that's in Congress.
Yeah.
He knows everything that's going on. That's why he lives off the grid. The people that live off the grid are in the know.
Okay.
They are in the know.
Yeah.
It's the people that are living in the fairy tale that everything's okay. And that those people care. Those people, I'm pointing towards Washington, D.C. I'm pointing east. I can't see it though, because the Cascade Mountains are in my way.
I mean, I can see it from both.
I know, because I know people who have moved off the grid, and they are my favorite people to have these conversations with. They're having, but I'm a city girl. People are surprised that I don't live off the grid, but I need art and culture and concerts and nightclubs and lots of craft cocktails and fun, diverse, ethnic restaurants. Yes, exactly.
You can't live on a farm by yourself.
Exactly. But that elitist piece that you're talking about is also a part of our Aquarius South node. That's that's our shadow. So, and that's everything that's happening now was a concern of our elitist founding fathers, because they knew that they were elitists.
Yeah.
They knew that they were elitists. And a few of them wanted to keep things in check. And I think we had this conversation before, but maybe in a moon cycle class, about that there was a small group of the founders that wanted to review the Constitution every 9 years.
Yeah.
They wanted to review the Constitution every 9 years because they reckon. I was like, were they astrologers? What did they know? But they knew that there was a new generation whose needs, they might have a different perspective.
They were astrologers. Ben Franklin writes about astrology in This American Life, his book.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So I think it was Hamilton, or maybe it was Madison. No, it was Hamilton. It was Hamilton, I'm pretty sure. Oh, now I have to go back and look. But a bunch of white dudes. I get them all confused. They all look the same to me. But there were a few others that were in agreement with him, and we don't do that. We don't update the Constitution, and we bend it and we reinterpret it based upon. But it really that's where we start, is reshaping the Constitution. And again, I really believe that it is symbolic that we are being presented with these unprecedented energies. Because if we really want to, now is the time to rewrite the script.
That'd be amazing.
And maybe that's my pie in the sky Sagittarius. Maybe I'm in the the over optimistic shadow of Sagittarius.
Maybe. Because I just feel like there's going to be changes. There will be revolutionary experiences, maybe complete societies. There's revolutions, but I just wonder, and just because I can't see it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But ultimately, I think the only way a revolution occurs that is truly for the people is if the revolution is against the corporations. And if it's got to be, the corporations have to be taken out of the equation when it comes to leadership and politics.
But that's capitalism. We have to.
But here's the thing, though: it can't be communism, because that's
why.
Because then you have the state is they have all control. It's like you look at what happened with in China.
That's the extreme. Communism is the extreme.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there is a place in between.
There has to be a place in between.
There is the resources.
I don't know who the visionary is out there. I don't hear anybody that has a microphone in front of their face that is an influencer.
I do right now.
Yeah,
I have a microphone in front of my face right now.
We're gonna have a couple hundred people are gonna listen to this episode. So I'm talking about the people that have millions of listeners. They're fully engaged in working within the system, and so nobody's talking about removing corporations from the system and still making it about the people, and then keeping it out of the hands of the few. Because I don't care if you're in China or Russia or Cuba or any of these places that have been communist or are communists, it's the same thing. There's a 1%, and then there's everybody else. And it's just a different skirt on the same pig.
So throughout my lifetime, we have had people in front of the microphone with thousands of people listening, and they get assassinated.
Yeah, exactly.
They get okay. Exactly. We have a few that are still with it, but that's the thing, is that we like when I was growing up, the Black Panthers and people like that who were building community, who were trying to become self-sustaining. People like Malcolm X was talking about this. Angela Davis still talking about this. There are people but they are of a minority race. And so we are being told not to listen to them. But they've had solutions all along. And what they became enemies of the state.
Yeah.
They became enemies of the state. Bernie Sanders, bless his heart, on his smash the oligarchy tour. Bernie Sanders, who knows he's never going to be president of the United States. He knows that. He's accepted that. But he is still on this tour, speaking truth to power. Where are the leaders, the quote unquote leaders that have already served and should be speaking from them? Where I'm not going to name them all because, again, I don't want you getting heat, but we all know past presidents who are still alive
Mm-hmm.
and are silent.
They're all a part of the system.
And yes, exactly.
But Bernie Sanders is a part of the system too. I mean, he was politically assassinated by the whole Biden campaign and then went to work for Biden, which to me, I was like, huh? Like what they literally
keep your
did
enemies
to him.
Close. You want to get in there and hope that you can do some good.
That's saying that you can change things from the inside. And what we've been talking about here is you can't change things from the inside. You can't.
I agree. I agree.
But then we've also been shown how you can't change it from the outside either. So the only thing
and what I'm saying is maybe that's about to change.
Well, and I think it could.
And I think that Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders is not perfect. There is no perfect politician, but I believe that he hoped that he could influence something on the inside. Now, I heard that a certain vice president is planning on running for governor of a certain West Coast state that she's from, and it's like, no. Hell to the no.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing that anymore on my coast, I hope. On the best coast. Like, no, where if you were out there talking big talk, if you were doing anything right now, but you're not. We have to stop electing people into these positions that have such horrible track records and that just make empty promises.
But they have great track records from the perspective of the people that put them there.
They have that's what I'm exactly.
So that's the thing. Like the only thing that
I agree with you.
Here's my vision of hope. The vision of hope is that when the American and French revolutions occurred, the people that were actually fighting those wars were the Sagittarius generation, which now is the people that were born between 1983, 84 and 1995. Wait, no. That's the Scorpio generation. It's 95 to 08. The people that are born between 95 and 08. So they are the ones that want to burn everything down and they don't care, and it's like they'll just burn it all down. But it's going to be like really like I feel like my generation, the Libra generation, has to like hone their fire and like direct their fire in a way that's going to be meaningful and supportive and productive for everyone, not just for we burn everything down and then you just have some different assholes in positions of power that are
well, I think my generation's useless, honestly, in this. I'm calling y'all out. You're useless. So I don't have any friends my age. They're a bunch of pearl clutching crybabies.
Well,
Like I only care about my 401k. I actually had a woman say that to
it's
me,
because you're
like,
the Leo generation, and the Leo
I
generation
know, I know.
is the generation that's like, that's the boomer generation, and that's the generation that was like, came to Earth and was like, I don't like how things are here. We need to go protest. And then the hippies became the yuppies, and the protest was really about a bunch of people that were angry at their parents and they wanted to be in charge. And now you've had Bill Clinton, George Bush, Joe Biden, Donald Trump. We've had 4 presidents that are all of the Leo
You're hurting
generation.
me. You're hurting me. You're hurting me right
I'm
now.
sorry, Ricky. I'm sorry.
So, God,
It's all good. Like this, the thing is,
what a bunch of worthless people.
I'm trying to take the bigger picture approach with all of it, and I'm certainly excited to see Lilith transit into Scorpio and what that means, and thinking about what was going on in 2017, I think, when it was last there, and trying to reflect upon that. But I just can't help but think about, of course, the nodes and all the planets transiting in and out of Pisces, especially right now in the first quarter of the year. And we're just really being called to release control of
Yes.
trying to control everything. And I keep coming back to us being in the age of Pisces, and that began with the birth of Christ, and the story of Christ is like the story of sacrifice and suffering and faith, and that's what we're supposed to be experiencing right now. And when we lean in, because I think he's like, I agree, like these next 2 years are going to be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just like bracing myself for them, like I was in 2019, in the fall of 2019, looking at 2020. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And so I don't like to get into.
But you thrived in 2020, and so did I, and that's the way I'm looking at this.
That's because we're walking into this with our eyes open.
Mm.
I wasn't looking at 2020 like, oh shit, something's happening and I'm going to get screwed. I was like, oh shit, something's happening. What's the opportunity for me? How can I thrive in this dramatic shift that's going to happen? I'm not going to walk into 2020 thinking that everything's going to be the same like every other year, just like I'm not walking into 2025 through to 2030. Like, I think the next 5 years are going to, I said back in 2020, I was like, you think things are crazy now? By the time we get to 2030, we're going to look back at 2020 and laugh and be like, you think that we thought COVID was crazy? Like, this, no way. Like, the next 5 years is going to be really intense. And so this is why I encourage everyone to take responsibility for themselves and self-empowerment, understanding your astrological code, making dramatic revolutionary decisions in your life, in your community, that are for equality and for self-respect, for yourself, for the people around you, that we're all here, and nobody should be telling anybody else how to live their life.
Sovereignty.
As long as we're, living in respect of our neighbors and in our community, like, it's not about disrespecting anyone else. It's about live and let live. Let people be who they are, whatever you're identifying as, your gender, or you don't have a gender, or whatever it is, like, be you. Be you, and everybody needs to rally around everyone and respect hey, you're disrespecting this person, or you're disrespecting that person. We need to come together, and through that, hopefully we can push out the politics and disengage from the politics. Because what if we just all went off the grid in Seattle, Los Angeles, New York, and we stopped living in the manner that the media deems that we're supposed to be living? Then you don't have to be on a farm in the middle of nowhere. It's all about respecting each other. And so what the whole gender conversation brought up was just divisiveness. Because honestly, I think I've talked to people on both sides, and people on both sides want the same thing. They just want to be respected. They want to be appreciated for who they are. and they don't want, you know, other people to infringe upon their perspective of life and who they are. And that's what Aquarius is. Is you don't tell me who to be, and I'm not going to tell you who to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a problem with each other. I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't see things from your perspective. Your perspective doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work for me. But that doesn't mean that I need to belittle you for your perspective. Your perspective, I respect it even if I don't agree with it. And that's where we need to go.
I think what's going to happen, I hope, well, it's already happening. It's already happening in my world, and it's happening in the world of a lot of my clients. And that's that we're finding a shared value. It only has to be one.
Mm-hmm.
There only has to be one shared value to bring people together. And you don't have to talk about how you feel about a young
Political
person
issues.
a young or personal issues. Like
Personal
you don't
issues,
have to
exactly.
you don't have to talk about how you feel about a young person transitioning to another gender. We don't have to
Exactly.
talk about how you feel about a woman's right to her body. We don't,
Yeah.
but we
Or
can
who you
find
want to have sex with. It doesn't.
or
It's
who you want
nobody's.
exactly.
Yeah.
So one of my things is this came through to me that, and it's very personal, and that is lunch debt, school lunch debt. So I want to start raising money to pay off school lunch debt in Seattle school districts. So children in my Seattle's big, so it's not my immediate community, like my neighborhood. And I don't have any children in school anymore. So, but I was a hungry child and I was really smart, but I went to school hungry a lot.
Wow.
And it affected it affected my health, and it affected my mental health, and it affected my ability to learn. And we have the money to feed children. We have the money to feed children. We have the resources. People are hoarding wealth, and we have the money to feed children. So I will have house parties. I'm going to have concerts in my backyard. I'm going to give free astrology readings. I am going to bring people together, and I don't care what your other politics are. I don't care who you're sleeping with. I don't care who you voted for. If you want to contribute to school lunch debt being abolished, then we're on the same team. We're on the same team, right? It takes one value. And we don't talk about anything else. And then we get to know that our hearts are good and our hearts are in the right place. And then we talk about something else. And we realize, oh, we agree about that too. Let's work on that together. But it takes one value. Helping, children with autism, whatever. I used to be very, very involved in that community, and I'm not anymore because, wow, talking about politics. I mean, unfortunately, that community helped to get RFK where he is, and that's terrifying. And y'all can come for me. I don't care. Because I've been there. Don't care. But we can do great things. Just in, like a little bit at a time. And that frequency is going to ripple out. And we will change humanity just by raising our own frequency. We are going to raise the frequency of our next door neighbor and the person that's walking by their dog by my house right now. They're going to catch my frequency. And by the time they get around the corner, they're different. It takes one value.
Do you want to go into that other path of discussing RFK and
No,
okay, cool.
no, not now.
Okay,
Maybe in the
yeah.
future.
Okay,
Maybe in the
cool.
future.
Cool.
There, because I'm telling you, that community, they're mean.
Because you're bringing it up, and
Yeah.
and you're somebody who can empathize with them, though.
Okay, we'll do just a snippet of it. Okay,
Okay.
we'll do a snippet of it. So, I have a son. He's 31. He has autism. When he was diagnosed, there was very little. He was almost 5. He was just a few months shy of his 5th birthday. He was normally developing as an infant, ahead of milestones, and he received my 3 daughters who were older than him had all had adverse vaccine reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And so for different reasons, like one of my daughters they're all very allergic, but I'll just use one daughter. She's very allergic to eggs, and there was egg parts in one of the vaccines. Not going to get into the whole science of it because I know they're going to come. This is going to get a reaction. I should preface everything to say that I'm not anti-vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
So I was spreading with Robert. I've a history of 3 children before him. I'm really spreading his vaccines out, really spreading them out. And he's just so healthy and so happy. And so anyway, he got, he started having some kind of a respiratory situation, and he's, not quite 2 years old. Take him to the doctor. Actually took him to the doctor he was a well check appointment. It was his well check appointment. And, but he was also having some, stuff, sinusy stuff. And the nurse comes in with a tray of vaccines, right? And I'm like, what? He's here for a well check. And she's like, well, he's really behind on his vaccinations. And I'm like, yeah, I know, we're spreading them out. I have a schedule in my mind already. We're not doing any vaccines today. Also, he's not really feeling well. Mm-hmm. She was really pissy, really pissy with me. I'm like, don't care. So comes in, the doctor comes in, they do the well check, everything's fine, but yeah, he's a little bit sinusy. By the end of the day and into the night, like, he started running a fever. He was had really nasty stuff coming out of his nose, and then my husband at the time, my ex-husband now, he was like, I'll take him to back to the doctor. And we're able to get him in that day, and I stayed home with our daughters. And he comes home, and she vaccinated him. He received 9 vaccines in one day.
Oh my God. 2-year-old.
Not even 2 years old.
Wow. Not even 2.
Not even 2 years old.
Wow.
And then he got sicker and sicker with this infection, and had to take him back again. He had a really bad, they had to do x-rays. He had a very bad sinus infection, put him on heavy duty antibiotic. He started having explosive diarrhea, explosive bowel movements. He was crying day and night. And then he just disappeared.
Wow.
He lost his language, his motor skills, and he was suffering. For a long time, and he had really severe gastrointestinal issues for years and years. And he became completely nonverbal, which he isn't now. He's verbal, though, very limited, and more he understands most of what is said to him but his expressive language, his receptive language is higher than his expressive language. But he's just an absolutely precious human. He's an absolutely precious human, and he suffered unnecessarily. And so I became involved in, at the time, there was this online group, and we kind of found each other. And it's just think back to, that like 30 years ago, what technology was like. And we were exchanging ideas, and we were, all discovering that our kids were gluten intolerant and dairy intolerant and all of these things. And we were sharing notes, and I learned so much from them. I hope that they learned a lot from me. But then on Yahoo, there used to be this what was called Yahoo groups. And I created a group that I can't remember what the acronym was for. I need to go back and find it. But we had upwards at any given time between 3,000 and 4,000 people in the group.
Wow.
And I went to autism conferences all over the country, and met with parents, and met with doctors, and met with speech therapists and occupational therapists. And, like I had the direct, line to neurologists and all over the country that were, beginning to work with children with autism. And a lot of them were in this group, and we're sharing notes, and we're finding out, they can't eat carbohydrates, and they, this, and a lot of the kids whose parents were in that group at that time, their children lost their diagnosis and were able to get mainstreamed, and went to college and are married now, and there were really, really amazing outcomes for a lot of the children.
How did that happen? For
just a variety of therapies and dietary interventions and things that worked for those kids and didn't work for others. But this is, you know me so well, and you know my astrology. And so this is where my Gemini South Node, was a gift. But it just wasn't, this is so everything that we're talking about right now. So I guess I really was meant to talk about this. So within this group, initially, everyone that was initially a part of this group, including the doctors and the therapists, we were of a mind that vaccine injury was the reason for autism. Definitely for Roberts. I stand by that. Y'all can come for me. Don't care.
Who's going to come for you? Who's coming for you?
Just there's so many people. There are so many people that do not believe this. That do not. It's the division.
How can they?
It's a division.
How can they dispute your story?
But exactly right.
It's
how
not
can
their
they?
Story, it's your story.
But this is what happened in this group. This group was so popular, and people were hearing about it. And I would go to conferences, and parents would come up to me, and they would grab me, and they would cry, and they would tell me how much better their child was doing because of this open forum and this information. And it was so satisfying, and it was so wonderful. And I gave so much time and so much energy. But we started getting parents coming in whose children had never been vaccinated because they had heard about our experience, or they belonged to a certain faith where that wasn't done or whatever. And their children were diagnosed with autism. And so you have this original contingency of parents that are saying, that's not real autism.
They broke the narrative.
That's not real autism. You don't belong here. Go get another diagnosis. Go figure out what. And I'm like, no, there's more information here. we all have something to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
There could be another environmental, factor.
Yes.
There could be, maybe this is where we learn the genetic connection. Like, we have to come together and talk. But it was like, this group were like, you're not welcome here. And I'm like, no, it's my group. I started this. I started this. I started this group. This is my group.
Yeah.
You can't run anyone off. But people were leaving because they didn't feel welcomed. And I had to keep, and then there were these questionable therapies that people were doing. Then I was like, we're not talking about that here. Okay. And there were like parents were doing very desperate things and putting their children at harm. It just, when you have a situation like this, that there are going to be people that are going to exploit a parent's grief. And there were a lot of people that were doing that, and they were offering miracle elixirs, right? And then they were offering parents an opportunity to sell those miracle elixirs and so these MLMs started, forming, and people would want to come into the group and talk about them. I'm like, nope. We're not doing that, because then doctors were leaving like crazy. And I was like, I need the doctors here. It became so fractured. I was just like, it's very symbolic of everything that we talked about already today, right? Yeah. We not being willing to, like, if you do not share my narrative, my story, my lived truth, I don't exactly. We don't have anything in common, right?
That's the lower frequency of Aquarius.
The lower frequency. And then I realized, wow, I'm taking all this time away from my children. And then really the thing that really, fractured everything was that my husband left, and I had to work full time, and I couldn't do, that was really I was homeschooling my children. I was trying to help other people. And then I was like, oh, I got to save myself. And the thing that happened, is really like my favorite part of the story, is I just started loving Robert right where he was. And this is the story of my life. Like, just accepting, it's radical acceptance. Accepting everything where it is right now. And it's right now is all I've got. And I'm just going to love right now. And I just stopped everything. And I was like, he's just perfect right now. This is right where he's supposed to be. And we all did. My husband was gone, but my daughters and we just loved on him so hard. And he started talking again.
Wow.
And at 10 years old, I finally got him out of a diaper and all of these things, but it was like, again, we have to love right where we're at right now. And we have to believe that we're here for a reason. Like, he chose me to be his mother. Just to love him. Just to love him. And he makes it so easy. He's just the personification of unconditional love. Living, breathing, unconditional love. Everything I know about unconditional love, Robert taught me. And I know my daughters would say the same thing. And I know most of their friends who have been a part of Robert's, they're the people that, have shared in loving him and accepting him right where he's at have all received the gifts and the rewards as well.
Beautiful.
And this is again something that is for this moment, that is about this time, because when we look at fascist history, they will eliminate the disabled. And they right now, they want to cut off all of his services. They want to end Medicaid. They want to end, right?
Wow.
I want you to think. So I'm thinking, it's interesting that the thing that this all came up right now. This has been completely different than I thought it was going to be. And I love it. I love it. I love it. Because I am thinking about the countless parents of children with autism and adult children with autism, but a lot of the people who really believe in RFK, who is apparently, I didn't know at the time, back in the day, but a known heroin addict. It's like they're all on something up there.
But it's interesting. It's interesting because like you're definitely showing your Aquarius rising right now, because you're very unconventional in your approach. It's like, wait a second. So you're telling me that your son took 9 vaccines and 1 visited the doctor, completely changed physically, mentally.
And then the vaccines were full of mercury. I want to add that. That was before they took the mercury out.
But that would make me think, not knowing any better, would think that, well, of course you're going to be on RFK's side. Like you're like his number one pupil. You have a child that was vaccine injured and has autism as a result. And you're still taking care of him, and he's in his 30s. So what is it about? And when you say they're going to come for me, it sounds like you're saying that the people that are pro-vaccine are going to come for you, or the people that are not pro-vaccine, they're going to come for you. I'm not sure who's coming for you, but
the people that are anti-vaccine are going to come for me. Because
why is that?
Because
and what's your problem?
Well, they both are, because it's like, because it's a different, because my narrative is different than theirs.
Exactly. Wow.
So both sides.
Yes.
Because it's a different narrative.
Yeah.
And the friends that I still have from that community, interestingly, are the friends whose children were unvaccinated. Because they saw me fighting for them to be heard. That they shouldn't have to go someplace else to receive support. Like, and now that, it's been split up into so many different definitions and so many things, but I was like, no, they're welcome here. We can learn from each other. And if only we are here to support each other and to love on each other, to lift each other up. But it was wild. It's one of the wildest times of my life. And I've had some really wild times.
So the people, oh yeah, for sure. You lived a life. That's why I love talking to you. So much wisdom. I want to get clarity on RFK Jr. and your issues with him then, because he's been sort of branded as the defender of people who have had children that were vaccine injured that have become autistic.
But all of his children are vaccinated.
So what do you think that is?
Exploitation.
Yeah.
I can spot exploitation a mile away.
So interesting, because I love that you say that, because like I was having a conversation with a friend who big RFK Jr. supporter, and
Mm.
we were hanging out right as he was merging into the Donald Trump campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do you think about that? And he's like, oh, I mean, it's great. You know, it's just that next thing. It's, you know, it's a win-win. Either he's going to go in with Trump, or, you know, maybe something happens to Trump and then he takes over. And I'm like, did you ever think that, and this is why when we're thinking of like revolution and how that's going to go, like when you look at politics, it's two wings of the same bird, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not two
Absolutely.
sides, two wings of the same bird. And but really, I think of
It's
the
not even two wings. They're on the same wing. They're
I,
on the same wing.
I think you're right.
It's a one-winged bird.
I think you're right. But the way that I view it is they're like cattle ranchers, and they try to find the narratives or the political issues that are going to get the most people engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, leading up to this last election, you have a lot of people that were like, no, like, I don't care who's on the Republican ticket or who's on the Democratic ticket. They're not going to be the candidate for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm somebody who eats healthy and I take care of my body, and I don't believe in government intervention. I think the government oversteps, and you know, that's the sort of general perspective. Well, what happens when you have too big of a group that's thinking that way?
Mm-hmm.
You need another rancher to go
Mm-hmm.
out and bring that herd back into the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the herd. And that's what RFK represents.
Mm-hmm.
Is he's the guy who's like,
Yep.
hey, I think like you know, ayahuasca or you know, plant medicine can help people, and you know, I don't like pharmaceutical companies. They've gotten away with too much. And it's like, oh, well, this person sounds like me. So never mind the fact that he comes from, you know, the elite class,
Right.
because they're all from the elite class.
Right.
And so it drew in a whole group of people who were verging out of the herd.
Vulnerable people. They're so vulnerable. I can tell you, I don't think I was ever more vulnerable in my life than when Robert was diagnosed with autism. And I just wanted answers, because there were like a few books. There were, I mean, and the numbers then were really off, because it was like 1 in 10,000, you know. But you know, children were being like diagnosed like crazy, but the numbers hadn't caught up. And then, you know, when we, you know, I want to say that some of the most, also, I do want to say that some of the most persistent and strong and smart and capable people I've ever met in my life were a part of that community. A lot of people got stuck in their grief. That's a rough place to stay. And I was there for a long time. I know I have so much compassion, and I have compassion for them now, because their kids are going to lose services.
Wow.
I'm preparing for Robert to lose everything.
Oh my God.
Everything that I have that aids me in caring for him, they want to cut.
Wow.
So they can fund the tax cuts to the billionaires. They will take away from the most vulnerable. The cuts to the VA. The men and the women that fought for our freedoms. It's like,
they didn't even fight for our freedoms. They fought for the corporations.
They fought for the corporations, but they were indoctrinated to believe they were under the spell. They were under the spell.
And
you know,
that's the irony, though, is they fought for the people that are taking from them.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what's happening.
And that's
right?
that's another gift of my life. This is another like beautiful, full circle point. I was married to a Marine Corps officer. I was a part of that community. The sacrifices that families make.
Yes.
Not just the person that goes off to deployed, but the sacrifices that those families make in service to what we believe is protecting our free. We believed, I'm going to use the past tense, is protecting our freedoms. And that is a fucking lie. But I was a part of that.
Yes.
And I bought in. Like, I was like, we were on a base in, it's not there anymore, but we were on a sub base in Vallejo. And so it was Marines and Navy, and sub guys they're different. I'm telling you right now.
You gotta be. I think like you're living.
They
in
are a whole different breed.
For...
They are a whole different breed. But again, oh my gosh, the most amazing people. I met the most amazing people. I'm not in touch with any of them anymore, but absolutely amazing people. And I organized, my kids had all these allergies. And so I organized this co-op, and so we were like the same. It used to be called Mountain People's Warehouse, and now it's Unified Grocers, I think is what it's called. I can't remember, something like that. But it was this small Northern California, right? And you couldn't buy gluten-free stuff in the market back then, right? You couldn't. So they would come on the base and they would deliver to my garage. We lived on the base and deliver to my garage. But I would take orders from like all the families would meet at my house. We would take orders for like all of these organic things and gluten-free and dairy-free. And, we were all baking our own bread and, getting the good flour.
Wow.
They would deliver it to my garage, and then people would come over and help me sort it. Like, how Aquarius is that?
So,
how Virgo is that?
Well, that's Aquarius. You creating the community on the Yahoo group for the autism is Aquarius. Like you're wanting to do the lunch, free lunch, or praying for lunch for the kids. That's Aquarius. Like, and Virgo, being of service and being a part of the community.
But also the health part of it, right? We bought our vitamins in bulk, and we would buy things in bulk and split them up. And, it's just all of it. It's just like, oh my gosh, my life. It's just so.
Wow.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing. But again, Aquarius detachment, like, oh, I don't belong there anymore. I don't belong to that anymore. I don't belong to that, and I don't belong to that. And now I belong to this. And it's just like, no regrets, no grief, no, it's like, I don't belong to that anymore. And I learned a lot there, and I've carried, that's become a part of my wisdom. And, and now I understand it. Now I understand how I can hear two voices. And that is actually really important to me, that I can weigh the pros and the cons, that I can find the seed of truth here and the seed of truth here. And from that, I can formulate, a truth. So, so total, as they all are exploiting something, they're all exploiting some community to get to that place. So after talking, shit for years about Trump, he saw that, and the fact that RFK first went to Harris to try to get into that camp, and they were like, nah, brah, you too crazy for us. No, we're not. You're not. We got nothing for you. And then he was like, okay, let me go to these overtly crazy people.
Well, then Harris and Biden are the subvertly crazy because they're all
They're
crazy, though.
subvertly crazy.
They're
Yes.
all crazy.
Yes.
They're all
Yeah.
in the same boat.
They're twisted in a different way.
Because they exploit a lot of people as well.
Oh my gosh, please. I got no love for any of them. None of them. Well, I have no love for, they want nothing but for themselves.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah,
and
for their own gain.
Subjugate people. And
yeah.
I hope this Lilith in Scorpio really,
she's going to excavate the truth. She's
Yes.
going to bring more things up. And then again, in December, she's going to move into Sagittarius. And then you brought that up earlier, that Sagittarius generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we're going to have that fire. We're going to have some wisdom because we've got evidence now, right?
Mm.
We're going to formulate truth based on actual facts.
Yes.
And that we're deep seated. And there's also, there's all of there in Libra, we have justice. I always split the 3 houses, or, the signs, Libra, 7th house, 8th house, Scorpio, 9th house, Sagittarius. And Libra is like the fairness, like the civil courts, like, okay, let's go 50-50, and then, and then this is what's going to be really interesting though, because in Scorpio, the 8th house Scorpio to me is it's revenge. It's, people are going to
betrayal, revenge.
There's going to be betrayal. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of betrayal. And then we have all of that Pisces energy where we've got the lies and the deception and the betrayal. So we have to be in search of the truth, like intentionally in search of the truth. And then we get to Sagittarius, and where there is truth, and there is that higher justice. There's the higher court. There's the jury of peers. There's that kind of thing. So Lilith gives me hope.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah, Lilith gives me hope. Yes. And I'm
writing
a bunch of like little, summaries on some of this stuff, and I'll shoot them to you in an email. And if you want to share them, you can. And if not, that's
why
fine.
aren't you sharing them?
Because I don't have an email funnel. And when I try to share
on social media,
when I put things on Instagram, the feedback I'm getting is it's too much. Like that. Right. That Instagram, they don't want to read
all that stuff.
They don't want to read 10 slides.
Yeah.
And so I am creating something on Substack.
Okay.
I'm creating something on Substack. And have you done anything on Substack yet?
No.
Okay. You should explore it because I think you would like it.
I've looked at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like what I like about Substack is you own your platform and it's not censored, which means there are Nazis on Substack and other stuff too, because people have come to me, they're like, you shouldn't be on Substack because there's white supremacists on there. And I'm like, yes, I know. And don't subscribe to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't subscribe to them because, it's like, subscribe to me. So when is
that going to be live?
I'm hoping to get that up and running I'm waiting until the end of the Mercury retrograde.
Okay. So it till
in May.
May? Okay.
May.
Yeah.
In May. Everything is a lot of stuff launching in May. Soul Path Sanctuary, my events on my property is launching in May.
Okay.
And I'll probably have Substack by May, and who knows what else.
Okay. Well, hopefully those listening that are enjoying Ricci and her wisdom here will follow you on Instagram, and then you'll do the announcement of Substack. Yes. That's happening, and then they can subscribe to that. But,
yes.
When you're launching all that stuff, we'll have to come on and have another spirited conversation. Say it's about a transit, and then just delve into, world history and politics. And
well, I think it would be really fun when Uranus moves. I'm trying to think of what's next. Saturn in
Neptune in
Neptune
Aries
on the
on the
that's
30th.
at the same time frame. That's the other thing that Same
exactly.
time frame. Same time frame. Man, that weekend,
Oh my God, it's gonna be
it's
crazy.
going to be so action packed. like Lilith in Scorpio, the solar eclipse in Aries, Neptune moving into Aries for the first time in
Mercury,
165 years.
yeah, Mercury transits back into Pisces.
Mercury back in Pisces.
Yep.
Holy shite.
But then Saturn moves into Aries after that, and then Uranus in Gemini. So
yeah. I think Uranus and Gemini would be a really interesting time. But maybe, I don't know, maybe the Saturn.
I think either or both of them could be interesting. You know, I'm fascinated by both those transits, and
I'm going to be
especially about the alignments that they're going to be making with Neptune in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. So
yeah. I'm going to be doing more IG lives too. So
okay, cool.
I'm going to have more reels on IG, and
awesome.
You really helped me to get over my camera shyness.
Yeah, well, you've come out both guns blazing.
I think it's Lilith too. I think it's Lilith. I think it's Venus. It's this Venus retrograde. It's all of it. Like I know that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And I know that I know a lot.
Yes.
And keeping that knowledge to myself is not why I know it.
But you have a wealth of experience in your life. That is number one right there. I mean, all the different stories that you've told us, you know, just in these 2 episodes you've been on the podcast, between, you know, your childhood, your brother's murder, your son and the autism, being a military wife, going through a divorce. I mean, it's just like, it's all out there. But, you know, this is great as a North Node in Sagittarius to just, you know, and if you piss some people off, well, then they're not meant to be listening to you. I've been
pissing people off my whole life, and look, I'm still here. I've been pissing people off my whole life, and I'm still here, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
You know, I'm happy to be here. So it's okay. I want to tell you something really karmic about these moons, though, that are coming up. So I mentioned that the moon on the 14th is going to be, you know, conjunct my sun, and just, you know, right there next to my Venus. It's my brother's birthday that is homeless in California. Wow. And then the Aries moon on the 29th is on my youngest sister's birthday, and she's in Aries.
Wow.
Wow. So it's like, I'm like, our family truth's going to be unearthed here. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something's in the works here. Something's in the works.
A lot is bubbling to the surface, that's for sure.
So much is bubbling to the surface. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ricci, for your candor,
thank you,
your
Scott.
openness, your honesty,
thank you.
Your wisdom. So grateful to have you here. So grateful for the conversation.
And I love getting a little controversial.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. We got some hot topics on this episode, that's for sure. Scorching hot topics.
I just hope that, you know, like, I honestly, when you talk about people leaving you bad reviews and stuff like that, it just, like, it hurts my heart.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm like, I know it does, but I'm like, it hurts my heart, and I'm like, what? You don't even know him. You don't even know. You don't even know how much he puts into everything that he does. Like, how much you give to your clients, how much you give to your friends. And I've been a recipient, you know, on both fronts. Yes. How much you give as a mentor, and and I just think, wow, that's all the time, you know, you had the time to go and say, you know, shit talk the podcast, and it's like, just move on, you know, or I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. Like,
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like You know, I was a popular kid growing up, but I was also a kid that got bullied
Same.
and got pushed around. And, you know, I would always push back and then they wouldn't push me again. And so, but, and that's what I'm kind of doing with the podcast is if somebody calls me out, then I'll just bring it up and talk about it. But, I think people, they sometimes, I don't know, you know, I don't know what they're thinking, but like my assumption has always been that some people just don't like me. I'm a Scorpio. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, how many times have you walked into a room or seen a scorpion and be like, oh, how cute. That's so sweet. I want to pet it. You know, it's like, you're like, oh my God, like that girl. It's like, Scorpio, and just ran away from me. So I just upset people by my presence, you know,
Same.
and that's it. So, you know, I'm not trying to. I'm here to bring light and love and support and encouragement to everyone that is
Yeah.
listening. And sometimes, you know, I think the discomfort that people have is like the scorpion. I might draw you into some places that you don't want to go, some dark areas, some areas that you're hiding from. And you know, when I think of Pluto as Lord of the underworld, I think of it as like the bringer of light to the darkness. And when you bring light to the darkness, sometimes what you find is pretty unpleasant, and not everybody likes to see what you're showing them. And so I think that's it.
Yeah. I'm sensitive. Like, I wouldn't want you to get any heat for things that I said, and that then brought up things that you wanted to say. But then I'm just like, what's the point of a podcast if we're not going to like, and if people will have constructive criticism, that's a whole other thing.
Right.
But saying like, I don't like this podcast anymore because I miss Ingrid. Well, we all love Ingrid. And guess what? She's got a podcast. Go listen to her. Have you listened to her podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's fire.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
yes,
like
exactly.
going to a podcast that Ingrid's not on anymore to say that you miss Ingrid when she's got a podcast that you have announced repeatedly.
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
I'm sorry. Do you understand what stupidity is?
Right. I know. Yeah. I don't know.
I do hope that Gabriella's going to be on sometime though, because I miss Gabriella.
No, yeah. She's busy, so
I know she's busy, but you know, because you guys did the deep dives, you know, and that's I'm about that, and I'm happy that she's busy. But I loved it with Ingrid because I love Ingrid, and I loved it with Gabriella, and I love it with you, and I love the interviews that you're doing. I think. And is it Andrew? Did you do one with? I think that's the one that I'm listening to. Drew. Yes. Yeah. That's the one that I'm just finishing up now, but and then I'll be all caught up. But oh my gosh,
yes,
they're so good.
Yes, thank you.
So much reflection and so much vulnerability, and that's what we need right now. We don't need influencers. We need like the voices of real people.
Yes, that's what I'm working towards. You know,
I know.
And having you and everyone else that I've had on the podcast is, you know, come here, be vulnerable, tell your story, and I love it. You know, and you're gonna feel love from me, no judgment. And I really appreciate everyone who's come on and
vulnerability is strength.
Yes,
it is strength, totally. And it's a superpower.
Yes,
and it took me a very long time to understand that. Yes. And now it's like it's my happy place. It's my happy place. And you have been a really, really big part of that. So
thank you, Ricci.
I can't believe we've known each other this long now.
It's been years.
It's wild.
Yes.
It's like a blur.
It's flown by.
It's really really wild. Yeah. But it's an honor to do this with you. I can't even tell you. Like I was really looking forward to this, and
you brought it. You brought it, Ricci.
It's so different than what I thought it was going to be, and yet I feel really good about it.
Good. I'm glad, Ricci. Well, thank you again for all your time, your energy, your wisdom, and I'm so excited to share this, and I'll look
Yeah.
forward to reconnecting with you and having you back on the podcast.
Yeah, we should take notes on and talk about at the end of Lilith's transit through Scorpio.
We'll
We should do
revisit. We'll come back and see
we
what
should
happened. Yeah,
we should do
exactly.
a
Where the
reflection.
truths
We should do a
revealed. What
reflection.
happened?
Yes.
Exactly. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Awesome,
Yeah.
Ricky. Very
All
good.
right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Ricky. Yes. Thank you for listening to the Weekly Transit. Interviews and conversations from an astrological lens. This episode was produced by me, Scott Tejerian. Music written by Ben Leinbach from Listen Deep by Amber Herzog Lyman. If you're interested in being a guest on the Weekly Transit, you can email me at scott@theweeklytransit.com. Wishing you all the best as you ride the planetary waves.